Hello.
Hi,
Hello. I'm Zach,
I'm Braxton.
and we are
From Old to New.
Now, today we're continuing our Spider-Man reviews to prepare for Spider-Man No Way Home, and we're about to finish up the Andrew Garfield era with
The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
for 2014. Now, this movie was like divisive amongst fans.
Very divisive.
Like,
When I first saw it, I liked it.
yeah, but then like after hearing all the like
All the points people started to make about like why they didn't like it, it was kind of like, yeah.
it's hard to ignore. That's kind of like how I felt.
Yeah.
That's how I felt when I watched the final season of Game of Thrones. The minute people started pointing out stuff, I could not notice it.
Yeah.
Now, here's like, okay, so continuing off our story, you know, Peter is continuing as Spider-Man.
And he already starts out with a different suit.
Yes. I felt like this suit tried too hard to be the Sam Raimi suit. Like, can we use the photo as a
Yeah.
like here's like his suit. I felt like they took some elements of the Sam Raimi suit, definitely, but I felt like, you know,
Well, let's show it to you closer.
yeah. As you can see, like, you know, it is a unique suit, but it's like it is more comic accurate, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so like the original Amazing Spider-Man, he uses like sunglass lenses for the Spider-Man eyes, and obviously in this one he's got white eyes now instead of black.
and as he's continued doing that, you know, starts off with him going up against like a couple of gangsters led by one of the gangsters who's actually
The Rhino.
yes. Now, not the Rhino yet.
Not the Rhino yet, but he becomes the Rhino. And, you know, Andrew Garfield actually, what I've noticed about Andrew Garfield's performance, and I don't think we brought this up in The Amazing Spider-Man, is he seems a little bit more like Spider-Man when it comes to, like, how goofy he kind of is.
Like the quips.
When he's fighting. Yeah, he's always throwing out, like, one-liners and quips,
Yes.
kind of like Spider-Man would normally do. Whereas Tobey Maguire, he was more like
the serious.
I'm fighting you. This is a fight.
Like Tom
There's
Holland.
no joke.
Like Tom Holland and Tom Holland, he's sort of like a good mix of that.
Yeah, Tom Holland knows that the situation is super serious, but he'll also throw out a one-liner.
And a pop culture reference if
Yes.
necessary. Now, and like this is all happening like on his graduation day
Yes, he's about to graduate high school, and
with his girlfriend Gwen Stacy as the valedictorian.
yes, and you just see how he just feels tremendous guilt over the death of Gwen's father.
And
like he sees him everywhere.
And especially because of like the promise he made, where he promised like he would stay like away from Gwen. Not
He'd leave Gwen out of all this Spider-Man's business.
and so like because of that, there's like a rift between them, and they end their relationship.
Yeah.
And like, you know, after that, Peter continues on working as Spider-Man. You even get to see like, you know, some other situations of like what Spider-Man can deal with. Like, you know, even if he's sick, he's still Spider-Man.
Yeah. He's going into like a drugstore getting like pain or cold and flu medicine as Spider-Man in there, and the guy's like, "Hey, you're that Spider guy." He's like, "Yeah, I'm Spider-Man."
It's like all stocked up, and he's like, you
Yeah.
could just you could take off the mask. Why do you have to wear the mask? Why can't you just go in like, "Hey, I need some cough medicine, please"?
Yeah, he was like me earlier this week.
Yes, basically. And like this one, we get introduced to a character that we knew from the original Sam Raimi trilogy, Harry
Osborn.
Yes. Now I felt like this was a different take on him.
Yeah, this is a very different take
Like
on him because he's sick in this one. He's very sick.
He also has a horrible relationship with his father.
And his father is dying.
And he ends up dying from a genetic disease, which I actually read. They actually applied that element to a couple of other Spider-Man projects, especially, let me grab it here, the Spider-Man 2014 video game. This was actually a great video game. If you haven't played it yet, I truly recommend you play this. They apply some aspects of, like, you know, Harry having a genetic disorder and how it affects him and his relationship with his father. But so like Harry now is the CEO of the company, but he's also trying to find a cure for his disease.
Yeah, which ultimately ends up leading him into becoming the Green Goblin.
And that because of after hearing you know, Harry Osborn's father died, Peter, who was like, you know, a childhood friend of his, went to go comfort him, and they end up like, you know, becoming friends again, like hanging out.
Yeah, they're hanging out and having a good time. So then Harry's motive for becoming the Green Goblin and being the Green Goblin is totally different than in Spider-Man 3. In Spider-Man 3, it's all about revenge. I want to get revenge on Spider-Man. This one is,
I don't want to die.
yeah, I don't want to die.
Like, he became the Green Goblin as a part of, like, you know, his original motive was, like, I just want to find a cure for this. I don't want to die. But then, after, like, you know, getting...
He goes to ask Spider-Man for help, and he wants his blood because he thinks his blood will cure him, and Spider-Man rejects him, and that's what causes him to hate Spider-Man. And he calls him a fraud.
But Spider-Man also has a good motive because he saw what the last time he worked genetic research, working with that kind of genetic research, did when he created the Lizard.
Yeah.
So he didn't want that happening again. He also didn't want harm coming to his friend.
Yeah.
And so, also, we also got another villain in this one, Electro.
Yes. Electro is the main central villain of this movie.
Now, I felt like with this Electro, I felt like Jamie Foxx's performance as Electro and as his character Max Dillon was great. It's just that the writing wasn't good.
The script was a little bit off-putting.
Yes.
And, you know, he starts out this huge fan of Spider-Man because Spider-Man saved him from an incident earlier in the film.
But he's still, like, you know, he's a nobody at work, doesn't get any credit despite doing all the work.
Yeah, and, you know, Spider-Man's like, hey, you're not a nobody, you're somebody, and stuff like that. And so he looks up to Spider-Man to start off with.
But after getting into an accident, falling into, like, a vat of electric eels, he becomes Electro.
Yeah, and he feels like, you know, Spider-Man wasn't there to save him.
No, I felt like it was more like, you know, he finally got powers and people were starting to notice him, but Spider-Man took away the attention from him.
Yeah. He was starting to use his powers.
He was still trying to understand. He didn't know the full extent of it, and he was hurting people, but he didn't know it was, like, hurting people.
And so Spider-Man came to stop him, and so then that's when he starts to hate Spider-Man.
Yeah. So, and finally, I will say this, though. I am looking forward to seeing Jamie Foxx again in No Way Home. And I feel like this look for him is amazing, because they go back to comic book accurate with the star mask.
But it's not goofy looking. I think I heard that the reason why they gave him the blue look in this one was because they thought the comic book look looked too silly and too ridiculous, and they didn't think people would take him seriously. So they went with the blue look because it looked a little bit more realistic and a little more serious
and
modern. And so I think with this new one, they found a way to give him the comic book accurate look, but make it look a little more serious and not just goofy.
Like an armored look, but also a modern armored look while also applying classic elements of the comic book.
Yeah.
Now, also, this one continued, the movie continued with another aspect that we explored in the previous Spider-Man movie, the mystery of Peter's disappearance. Because we start off, we see, like, they're on the run.
Yeah.
Because Peter's originally told, like, you know, he finds out, like, you know, according to his Aunt May, that his parents committed a crime at Oscorp and that they fled the country.
Yeah.
But Peter eventually finds out the truth, that his father helped develop the Spider-Man serum and that Oscorp was planning on using that to create biological weapons. But he created a failsafe, similar to, like, the Death Star in Star Wars. He created a failsafe so they could never be used.
Yeah.
He used his own DNA to do it. That's why it worked on Peter, not anyone else, because he shared his father's DNA. And Peter, like, finally got some closure on the fact, like, you know, his father did care about him. They didn't just abandon him. They had to leave to protect him. And so, like, during all this time, Peter's, like, finally able to move on from that and maybe, like, open up to Gwen more.
Yeah.
And now, back to Harry's storyline, you know, he's, like, you know, finds out about the Spider-Venom, so he decides, like, you know, I gotta get some way. So he breaks in and breaks out Electro to, like, take control. And when he injects himself, it starts mutating him.
Yeah.
Like, enhancing his condition.
Yeah.
But he finds, like, you know, the Green Goblin suit.
Which, that scene actually, this movie references a whole lot. This was a setup movie.
Yes, basically.
And, like, it got thrown in the trash. This was a big setup movie.
Yeah.
Like, we were setting up a Sinister Six movie, Amazing Spider-Man 3 and 4, which I'm hoping I don't think it's true, but I did hear that Tobey Maguire said that he wasn't just coming back for one movie.
Yeah, it was part of his deal. Like, I would understand that. Like, I'm not just coming back for one
So
film.
I kind of
gotta
hope like we get like a Spider-Man 4 and an Amazing Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
But that might be a little bit too much wishful thinking.
Yes, but I would like to see that. So Harry, yeah, you had like a Doc Ock suit, you had a Scorpion suit, you had a Rhino suit.
Yes, which we do see in
Yes.
action for a little bit.
So like Peter then decides like he's gonna go. He wants to be with Gwen and move to England with her so she can continue her education. But Electro fights them,
Yeah.
and Peter defeats him easily. But Harry swoops in, figures out that Peter's Spider-Man, and kidnaps Gwen Stacy, putting her in a Mary Jane kind of scenario as a damsel in distress.
And so Peter obviously has to go and save his girlfriend, and he gets into this big fight with Green Goblin, Harry Osborn, which leads to another comic book storyline, a famous one.
The death of Gwen Stacy.
Yes.
Which he tries to catch her with a web, but he does catch her, but he catches her too late, causing her head to hit the pavement.
Yeah, and it's
Like,
I kind of agree with what a lot of people say that it was too soon,
Yeah.
especially when you find out that they had like 3 other movies planned.
yeah, like you don't just kill off like your love interest the second movie.
Yeah, so like, were they planning on just introducing Mary Jane, or?
I think I saw in a deleted scene they referenced that there was a character, Mary Jane was a character in it, they just didn't name her yet. She was like a waitress in the opening scene. Now like after that, Peter like goes to another loss and he's completely devastated. He
quits being Spider-Man.
which is understandable after all that.
Like he just was accidentally involved with his girlfriend's death, and then so he's just like, yeah, I can't do it anymore. But then he notices like Rhino is out in the street, like starting to just destroy stuff,
and
he realizes that it's his responsibility that Gwen would have wanted him to do to keep being Spider-Man, so he goes out and becomes Spider-Man.
There was also another scene I really liked because it kind of referenced the MCU a little. There was like a scene where like a kid in a Spider-Man costume actually ran up to Rhino to like stand up to him, and then the real Spider-Man shows up and kind of does it, which is similar to like when Iron Man kind of met the young Peter Parker at the Stark Expo.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was a nice little Easter egg.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't meant to be one, it was a great one.
Yeah.
And we also, like you said, they did set up it, like at the end, like this guy who we saw like in the post-credit scene of the first Amazing Spider-Man, like shows up, like, walking by, like, I'm thinking of forming my own team, you win.
Yeah. There was so much setup with this movie, and this movie was kind of like Spider-Man 3, where they're just trying to do too much at once.
I mean, if you're planning on making 3 or 4 more movies, you could probably spread out those evenly. Like end it with like, you could do like, oh, you got a Lizard movie here, you got Electro movie here, you got Green Goblin movie here, then like final movie, Sinister Six.
Yeah. But then again, it could be a good thing that they did it, because then we wouldn't have Spider-Man in the MCU.
Yeah, that's
because Sony would still be busy. We would probably be on like Amazing Spider-Man
7.
Well, we would have been past 3 by now, probably, at least. I don't know if we would have 4 yet.
Overall, I'd have to give this movie at least 5 or 6.
Yeah, I was thinking probably 5 or 6.
Yeah, because
it's not great.
Good plot points, good fight scenes, but storyline.
It's got the same problem with Spider-Man 3. There's too much stuff crammed in, because you've got Electro, Green Goblin, the death of Gwen Stacy. You've got Rhino at the end. You've got
Peter's parents.
Parents.
That is something I forgot. There was a deleted scene, like a deleted post-credit scene, where it turns out
Peter's father is still alive.
Yes, and that would have been amazing.
Peter's, it's like, where have you been all this time, and like, why did you just run out on me? That's a good deleted scene. It's actually on YouTube. You can look it up.
Yes.
And I recommend watching it. It's a good scene. So that's it.
Yeah.
I think so. What did I say? 7.
You gave it at least a 5 or 6.
Yeah, 5 or 6 out of 10 for me, and
5 or 6 that's for me.
So that's our review for The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
And we cannot wait to hopefully see Andrew Garfield
And Tobey Maguire.
and all of his villains return in Spider-Man No Way Home, which we will actually go seeing opening night on December 17th.
Yes.
So
we have
watch
our
out for
tickets.
So you better watch out for our review of that.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.